right, I'm so glad all of you could take some time to meet up with us. My name is Jeannie Link, and I'm one of the health sciences librarians here at the University of Illinois in Chicago. And with me is my co-pilot, Emily Gilbert, who's also a health sciences librarian here in Chicago. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get started. Okay, things look good, Emily?
Yep, all good.
Okay, it's just the regular slide, correct? Awesome, thank you. Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about database bells and whistles, if I can talk, that is. And there's my information. I might keep saying it over and over again, but the librarians here at Daily or at LHS, we are all here for you. You are not bothering us. We hope you will come ask us for help the moment you are stuck with anything, whether or not we presented it to you in a presentation. So today, we're just going to go over a few things. Oftentimes when we're searching, we might not want to take time to look at extra and auxiliary features when we just want to get straight into exploring results for our literature review or to answer the question that we've got. And so this session is kind of a chance to take a moment and learn about some of those features. I decided it might be helpful to share this information because during a lot of consultations with students and faculty, I was showing them features and it was the first time they'd seen them. So I was like, this might actually be helpful. You may or may not already know some of the things that we cover, and this isn't going to be exhaustive. There are plenty of bells and whistles we're not going to play with. The other thing I just want to clarify from the get-go is that I'm not teaching people how to search with this session. However, if you would like to meet with any of the librarians to learn how to search better, we are 100% game to do that. Primarily, I want to go over core features that nearly all scholarly databases have, and hopefully provide you a little extra information that lets you decide which of these bells and whistles might serve or support you as you do your searches, because not everybody uses all of them, nor should you. You should adapt them according to how they're going to serve you best and how they're going to support your personal search strategies and habits. So basically, I hope you come away with awareness versus expertise. And as a takeaway, mostly I want to create expectations that are good to have. Expectations like, hey, does this database have a folder feature like the other database I used to use? Or does this database have a clipboard like the other database I used to use? So that those properties or options occur to you to look for right away when you're exploring a new database, because pretty much all of them have a lot of these core things. So first off, we're going to talk about a little geography. Some sites have landing pages and some don't. Then you're often introduced to choices. Do I use a basic search or advanced search, or what does that even mean? I don't know which one I want, depending upon how familiar you are. Controlled vocabulary, do I care? Is there even a controlled vocabulary offered up for you to use? Eek, so many filters. There's oftentimes filters in redundant ways, and we'll look over at that later. Often we steer people away from filters in the beginning of their searches and encourage them to use filters after they've done the bulk of their searching, or they've gotten a handle on at least initial results that are quite satisfying for them. And then, then we're going to go over sorting, saving, and mining my search results. And I think that this is kind of offers a lot of meat and potatoes that it can be really helpful. So that's pretty much like what the first half of this presentation will be about. So this time I'm going to stop sharing my slide and hopefully bring over the library's homepage so that we can actually look at some of these groovy things. All right, so hopefully you're looking at the library homepage.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you, Emily. We're gonna play around in PubMed for a bit, just to visit examples of some of these features I've been talking about. Later, we'll bounce around across a number of databases so we can start thinking about how it looks when you switch things up. So PubMed is best if you visit it via our library's website. The reason for that is that you're going to get best access to any free text that is available doing this. Now, PubMed is interesting because it has what I'll call a landing page. And I even think the landing page can be kind of confusing, but this is where you start off. And then it's got things like this little advanced button right here. And if you're starting off here at the landing page, you may not even know what that means. Why do I care? Why do I want to mess with that? So I'm going to use a can search and just do a few demos. So there's nothing wrong with doing a quick and dirty search. And we're just going to use one of those in order to, as a jump off point. Okay, so this might be an example of just a quick and dirty search where you're just like, is there much out there? What's out there? But this isn't how you get the most out of a search necessarily. So we've moved on from the landing page, which I'm almost never at, except for that very first moment. Again, we have an advanced button, and I find that when our databases offer us basic and or advanced buttons, it's very confusing because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's advanced. Sometimes it can just mean that the user interface is more simple, but that doesn't mean it's less complex. And you can pretty much start a bar fight with a bunch of like user interface people talking about this thing. The main point I want to convey is that don't let the term advanced intimidate you, because I don't think it means advanced. It especially doesn't mean advanced in the case of PubMed. We're going to go visit the advanced page quite a bit, and it's going to be very helpful because it is going to help us take advantage of a lot of the bells and whistles we want to mess around with. Okay, so when I go to the advanced page, right here, right away, you see a search history that's beginning to happen. There's an exclamation point there because it doesn't like the way I searched. I say always blame the technology. I knew what I was doing when I entered that search. So don't let anything, ruffle your feathers, as it were. You're in charge. And if something's difficult, blame the technology. And then get a hold of one of your librarians to help you with it. And don't wait until you're like tearing your hair out to do so. You'll probably hear me say that 5 more times today. So basic and advanced, just I would jettison cares about what those terms mean. What we care about is that in PubMed, that quote unquote advanced page lets us see our search history It lets us designate the fields that we find keywords in when we use keywords. And it also helps us take the results that we find with our search history and in an iterative process build more strategic and possibly time-saving search patterns. So one of the things that helps us do that is controlled vocabulary. So we visited the landing page. I've, griped about advanced and basic labels. Now I'm going to have us visit Mesh. Mesh is kind of like an app within PubMed that helps you use controlled vocabulary. So let's go visit Mesh. So when we start searching with Mesh, we're in the mode of searching for words. Mesh is almost like an interpreter. Like I'm saying, here's the concept I care about. What might be, is there even a subject heading that best talks about this term? And it's the way PubMed likes one to talk about it. And a favorite example of mine is cancer. Remember, we're not searching for articles just yet. Usually the terminology that's related to your topic is going to be, up close to the top of this list, even if it's really long. And if it's hard to differentiate, because sometimes more than one term does apply, it's really helpful to go in and look at the record for the term. Neoplasm happens to be the medical subject heading or Mesh term for cancer. I personally find this hilarious because until I started messing around with PubMed, I never heard anybody use the term neoplasm when discussing cancer. I think it's kind of how, like, once upon a time, you used to have to look up automobiles in an ancient resource called the Yellow Pages or the phone book in order to find stuff for your car. But what's important about the geography of this page is that there's usually a paragraph or a really sparse declaration about what they mean by this term. So you can read the phrase under the bold neoplasms. Next, we're going to have a whole list of subheadings, and the subheadings are extremely enticing. And I promise someday you will play with the subheadings, but I'm going to steer you away from the subheadings for today. It is one of the things that we know chokes searches into far too narrow a result when you apply them too early. So for the moment, let's not mess around with subheadings. My favorite part of this page is the entry terms right here. The entry terms really usually help cinch it, like whether or not this piece of controlled vocabulary is helpful to me. So I see many different ways of referring to cancer, several that I would have never thought up on my own. This is comforting because when I use this term neoplasm in a search, it's going to go out and scoop up articles in which all these expressions were used to refer to cancer, and where this is significant, major part of the discussion in that article. It's not going to bring you literature where it was just mentioned in relation to as an aside. It's going to choose articles where it is an important part of the discussion. So you've already saved time not having to type in many permutations of the term, and you're going to save time when you're skimming through your results because you're not going to be presented with a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with what you actually care about. So in order to quote unquote capture this term, I need to click Add to Search Builder and search PubMed. And each of the databases have a part of the interface that you visit where you move away from what you would consider the main search fields and go about selecting terminology that you're then going to use to create your search strings. This can seem incredibly tedious at first, and I'm very sympathetic. However, it's one of these front-loading things where if you can stand it, you will end up saving a lot of time at a threshold point when you've gotten a number of your terms all gathered. And you may still not find satisfactory mesh terms, and then you'll use keywords. But I find it's really important just to show people where the controlled vocabulary lives and how helpful it can be. And so I can hit my back button, but to go back into mesh, but I'm going to go back into my advanced page. Here we have neoplasm. I know nothing exciting has happened yet. I've captured one mesh term. The thing is, it tends to be really helpful when you're very, very first starting out to build those mesh terms in independent layers, like a layered cake, like they each get their own layer of the cake. Just at first, until you start to learn more about what terms are kind of hitting the jackpot for you and how you want to move forward with your search. So I'm going to go back to mesh, the medical subject headings, also referred to as controlled vocabulary. And I'm going to look up diabetes. This is one of those examples where I could very well choose more than one flavor of diabetes if it makes sense for my search. I can choose the most broad expression, or I might be more interested in a specific type of diabetes, knowing that there are several different kinds. In this case, I'm going to choose diabetes mellitus. And because I'm really sure about what that term means, I don't need to necessarily visit the record page for the term. I'm just going to click the box and then repeat what I did a minute ago and click add to search filter, search PubMed. And now I'm going to go back to the advanced page. And the reason I keep doing this is that I'm deciding on terminology. Okay. Already you could see how different, clearly nearly 200,000 results are compared to me just typing in diabetes and carbonated beverages. So I'm going to go back to mesh and get my next term. Whoops. Carbonated water, carbonated beverages. What's nice about mesh is you don't have to be fancy about things. If I had typed in soda or pop, we can see under the entry terms, it would have brought me to carbonated beverages if I just typed in soda or soft drink or any of the various ways of expressing this term here. Add search builder, search PubMed. Back to my advanced page. I know nothing exciting's happened yet. Alrighty. So the reason we emphasize isolating your mesh terms in your search history this way is because we then can start combining them by using these ellipses. So I'm going to add carbonated beverages, and then I'm going to add type 2 diabetes, but I'm going to add it with and. So I'm technically reproducing that very initial search that I just haphazardly put into the search field. Alrighty. And in this case, I get 68 results. Now that's considered a pretty tight group of items to work with. It's not too overwhelming. And there are lots of different strategies I could use to crack this open more widely. But I just wanted you to know about where to find mesh and how to start combining things in advance. Now, what if you don't want to use a mesh term? We like adding search terms in the keyword fashion up here in this top field. You don't have to designate it with one of these descriptors, but it can be really helpful because otherwise it's just kind of looking all across the text. One of our favorites is title and abstract. But again, there are lots of different choices here. Alrighty, so we've talked about controlled vocabulary. Now let's play with the filters a little bit. I'm gonna go jump right back into my search results. And most people like to limit according to time, and it's a really convenient way to limit things. And those filters are readily available right here. So if we limit to the last 5 years, we've got 14 results. And that's fine. And that's definitely an easy number of things to deal with. But what if I'm seeing lots of articles in different languages? It's not happening in this topic a whole lot, but it does happen. So I need to go to additional filters. I need to go to other, oops, article language, sorry. And here you see English has already been checked. The reason I'm bothering showing you this is because just checking English here isn't actually selecting it for myself. This is going to push the filter to the surface so that I can apply it. So if I wanted to choose female or male, if I had an age group I wanted to consider specifically in here, it looks like I may have filters available, but not necessarily selected on that surface. So I'm going to click show. The only reason a lot of these are here are because they were selected and push up to the surface. Publication date and like general article types are usually there by default. But I want you to know about those additional filters for you to tweak large groups of results with to make them even more specific. There are lots of filters. I'm not going to go through them. I just wanted you to know where they were and how to get to them. So let's go ahead and actually select English. And it only eliminated one article. Not a big deal because the group that we had wasn't even overwhelming to begin with. So that's just a little bit about filters. Really recommend getting the filters after you've skimmed through some citations and you're seeing stuff that is like hitting the nail on the head. We don't tend to worry about filters until we see the right topics of articles coming up. And hopefully they come at the numbers that allow us to use a filter, at least when it comes to how chronologically. So now we're going to talk about another subset of sorting your search results, and that has to do with your display options. Now, some people are fine with this version of displays. It's going to give us a certain number of results per page, okay? And up here, I'm going to sort by most recent first instead of best match. You could do by publication date. If you have a specific author or journal, you can make those primary indicators of how you want things listed. I tend to use most recent. And if you take a little time to practice with some of these, you will find what suits you best. I'm fine with this display option. In order to see the abstract, I have to click on the title, and I'm okay with that most of the time. However, you can change that. Some people don't mind scrolling through larger walls of text. So I can put abstract. And so it brings that entire abstract up to the surface level. So if I'm somebody who doesn't mind scrolling and really prefers seeing the abstract in order to make my selections, you can do that. Another display option that's useful is how many items per page do you want? Some people find it just more comfortable for their eyes to look at fewer per page, and some of us on some days don't mind scrolling through a wall of text, especially when it's a topic that we become fairly familiar with. So I just want you to know that these options are here, and you should make things to whatever degrees possible serve your interests, your comfort level, help make searching easier in any way possible. So when we talk about sorting search results, you can tweak your display options. You can do different things to your filters. And it's as important to reset filters as it is to understand having the option to apply filters. And so I'm going to reset all filters. And you'll see the number of results is back at 68. Sometimes the reset button can get a little sticky, and I end up going to my advanced page to double check. And here you'll see an example. Here in search number 7, we applied that last 5 years in English. And that's why we only have 13 items. Here, I don't see in the last 5 years in this section. So I know for sure that that filter has been reset. And I can go back into that set of results just by clicking on the number 68. All right, so part of sorting and searching is skimming. And we talked about display options to help you make those selections. Here in PubMed, you can skim through articles and go along and decide which ones are potentially valuable. And only you will know what that means at any point in time. Maybe you're going to cast a broad net. Maybe you've done some searching already and you're revisiting the database and you already have a good idea of exactly what you want. But what do I do after I start identifying literature I might like to keep? You can kind of separate the wheat from the chaff by going to the send to button and hitting the clipboard. And so I just tossed 4 items into the clipboard, and I can keep skimming throughout the rest of my pages to my heart's content and keep adding items. We got rid of our English filter, and so here we see an example of something that was not published in English. And the reason my eyeballs know that is because they always have these brackets letting us know that in this case it's Spanish. Alrighty, so the whole send to thing, where did I send them? I mentioned sending them to the clipboard, and the clipboard here is showing that, yep, indeed, the 4 items I sent there are there. This can be extremely convenient. I use the clipboard a ton, just as I use my advanced page a ton to carve out and build better searches. So I'm going to visit my clipboard. And this is where I'm going to send all the things I care about keeping. And if I haven't made an account in the database, and you don't always have to make an account, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you can email those items to yourself, which is excellent. And you've got them for safekeeping. We can also send them to a citation manager. I might not even bother sending them to myself via email. And if I've decided on a citation manager, say RefWorks for one, or Zotero, there are a couple that we support. Sending them straight into a citation manager is probably one of the most efficient things you can do after you're done skimming. Even if you're going to go through for another pass or two, you know that you've captured everything you worked so hard to find. Now, when I talk about, working really hard to find something, that's when I start talking about creating an account. And the other reason I want to talk about creating an account is because if you're actually at a point in a search, or a search that's very serious, creating an account can be a great thing. Now, I can take advantage of most anything I need to without creating an account, but I tend to kind of be an digital information hoarder. And so I love anything that automatically captures what I did to find what I found. Some of you might realize the value here, especially if you're writing a methods section. So I'm already signed into my account, and here's my search history. I could download my search history, and I often do, because it makes it really easy to repeat what I've done. I can also clean up a search history. I can remove parts of it where maybe I veered off the rails and I've got a set of results that don't really show building up to what ends up being my final search. And so I can delete these and get it nice and tidy. Now, when you download this, it's going to download as an Excel file. And it's not too pretty, but it's wonderful to have, especially when it's time to write your methods section. Understanding and being able to recognize like how you got the results that you got is extremely helpful when you're writing your methods section. It's also nice to be able to go back and work through your process of finding the best language you use to do your search. So if I visit my account here, I'm going to go to my dashboard. And the reason I'm showing you this is that even though I'm probably going to download my search history, or maybe just take a screenshot, whatever floats your boat, this recent activity has been captured for me. And this is excellent because between my search history and the recent activity that's been captured chronologically, I can basically get to a certain point in my search and have perhaps, curated, say I'm halfway to the best search, but I can walk away, go eat lunch, do whatever I need to do, come back, open up my account, and resume work exactly where I stopped, instead of having to rebuild all of those searches in order to get where I was in the first place. Because let's say I have 300 articles that are worthwhile, but I don't want to skim through them at that very moment because something else is pulling for my attention. Here are PubMed searches that I've done and saved. There are a lot of things here in the dashboard that I could talk about. I'm just going to stick to the core items, and that's recent activity and saved searches and collections. Collections is just another way that you can very efficiently save some of your search results. So let's go back to my results. Oops, nope. I want to go back to PubMed. I want to go back to the advanced page. Or do I? No, I don't. I want to go to clipboard. Pardon me. I want to go to clipboard. I spoke about sending items away using email or sending things or exporting things to Citation Manager. All of those are great, but I can also send these to a collection without selecting specific items. It will default and send all of them. So I'm going to go to send to collections, all of my results. I'm going to start a new collection and I'm going to call it diabetes and soda and add. You can call your collections anything you like, obviously. Some people like to do them with identifiers that are dates. Some people like to use the important language that they've recognized as being exactly right. That there are many options. So now here you see in the collection screen, diabetes and soda. Are there any questions so far? I know I'm moving fast, kind of throwing a lot at you, but we have another section to go into.
No questions in the chat.
No? Okay, so let's move on. Some of the other reasons you might want to create that account is different databases have different means of timing out on you. PubMed tends to be very generous. Not all of them are so generous. So one more thing that I'd like to go over with you is what I will call mining my results. I'm going to go to advanced and I'm going to go to this set of 68 here. And what I mean by mining my results is sometimes if we can just find one article that talks about the topic, maybe it's not even precise enough, but it's in the neighborhood, it's adjacent. And if we've been having a really tough time finding stuff, that can be really helpful. And so when I'm talking about mining articles, I'm going to open up an article and I'm going to show you other features you can use to move back and forth on the timeline. So here you see these are actually buttons, all of these choices here on the right side of the page. The ones I use the most are the mesh terms, the references, and the cited by. So this is a pretty recent article, but I'm still curious. It's been 2 years if it's been cited by anyone. So I can click cited by, and right away, it takes me to a set of articles that have already cited this article. And this would be pretty exciting if the article in case is, really talks about the item that I care about. Here, sometimes these lists are long and these buttons are very helpful. Here are references. Now, these lists are generally kind of short because if they went on forever, we would be scrolling for miles. And that's why I want to bring your attention to show all 82 references is a button. Next, we'll visit probably my favorite button in this entire column, and that's the button for mesh terms. Those terms that we were looking for early on to help us build our search. And so we see beverages. Oh, so that might have been an additional mesh term I would have wanted to go back and find. But if I didn't think about it, it's okay. This article is bringing it to my attention. And I can actually click on it here. I can search in Mesh if I need to, but I feel like I have a fairly good handle about what beverages means. And I'm just going to search for it on its own and throw it in its own isolated layer in my cake, as it were. And so when I click on advanced, it's going to be in my search history. But I want to go back to that article and maybe go back to my Mesh terms and see what else here is exciting and potentially helpful that I'm going to want to toss into my pile of terms. This is kind of a backwards way of finding really good Mesh terms. And it can be extremely helpful because sometimes, as thorough as we try to be in terms of thinking of keywords and synonyms, things escape us. But I'll tell you, never in a million years would neoplasm ever come to mind. But if I got near a cancer article and I went to the Mesh terms and it said neoplasm, I would for sure be throwing that into my search history, going back and recombining terms for myself. And then I won't have to do that again, especially if I decide to download my search history and or save specific searches. So if there aren't any questions, I'm going to just kind of zoom around and visit different data, one or two other databases. So at the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned how these are core features, and they usually are. So let me go ahead and go to the library's homepage. I'm going to go to databases. I'm going to have us visit CINAHL, and then I'm going to have us visit Scopus. Okay, here's CINAHL. CINAHL is a cumulative index of nursing and allied health literature. And it happens to be on the EBSCOhost platform. And that's kind of nice. There's many different databases you can use via EBSCOhost. And so understanding some of these bells and whistles for this platform will serve you across a number of domains. Right away, we have what I think is a very confusing set of options here. My recommendation is do not bother. Do not click on full text. Do not mess with any of this. And it's not because you're not smart enough or cool enough or wise enough. It's because oftentimes it's just not to your advantage, especially full text. Limiting your results to full text isn't actually a reliable filter. And we don't want you to miss out on like the bestest full text, especially if we're already paying for the expensive subscription to the fancy journal. We want to make sure that you see it and that you get it. So what about controlled vocabulary? That was one of the first things we discussed in PubMed. Here, it's called subject headings. And so we would treat this like Mesh and search for diabetes. And it's going to give us many different choices. It's going to let us click more than one at a time if we would like to. And search database. Notice I only chose one. I could choose more than one, but I'm a stickler. And I wanted to start building a search history. And here's the beginning of my search history. Here's the search history button. So it's kind of like in PubMed, I had to click to advanced to get to a place where I could see my search history. On EBSCO, I can go directly to searched history. I've never even used the advanced search in CINAHL because this set of fields here is all I really need. Now, subject headings are going to come coded, and they're going to let us know. They're going to do the same thing the mesh headings did, meaning they're going to ensure that this topic, this specific topic, is an important part of the discussion for the article. Now, if I open up one of these records, you can still mine it backwards, kind of like we took the article from PubMed and mined it. So here are major subject headings. I could use some of these, click on them, capture them, recombine, recreate my search. And I might look at these and find things I might otherwise not have thought of, which is always really convenient. Here, way over on the right, I don't have buttons that take me to things like the subject headings. We go straight into those and they're at the top. But I can prepare to email this item. I can add it to a folder. I can export things to a citation manager. I can capture a permalink, which is really lovely, because I can share that with other people. Adding to a folder here in Cinall is exactly the same thing as tossing things over to your clipboard. So those are some of the main points. Now let's go visit one more database. Do we have any questions? I'm just gonna go over to Scopus. Scopus is a really dynamic database that comes across several different domains. It tends to be somewhat more interdisciplinary than PubMed or Cinall, but it's different from those two in the sense that it doesn't have a controlled vocabulary. So I kind of need to come to Scopus, hopefully having some idea about what I want to search for. I can also pull a little trick. I can take a title from a previous search. And if I really liked that specific title, I might use it as a jumping off point in my Scopus search. Sometimes it's not necessary. Sometimes it's a really great way of basically jumping into the timeline. It's a very unsophisticated strategy, but it can be very helpful. Okay. Maybe later we'll play with that. All right. So the reason I'm bothering with this is just one article, but similar to the display screen in PubMed, I can see whether or not anybody has cited it. It's too new, so nobody has cited it yet. But there's still a lot more ways I can mine this particular title. So I'm going to open up the record for the article here. And you start to get an idea. Page could not be loaded. Okay, I'm not going to worry about it too much at this moment in time. We already know it wasn't cited by anyone because it was so very new, but there are related documents. But something I find extremely helpful is similar to PubMed. I have all the references at my fingertips, and that might be great, especially because this is such a recent publication. And I can view those references in a search results format. And similar to the way Cinall had a folder, Scopus has lists, and you can create lists. Now I can create a temporary list while I'm here and searching. But if I create an account, I can do all of those things that I showed you I could do with the dashboard in PubMed. And just like PubMed and CINAHL, I can also take advantage of what I learn about my search through a search history. So here's my first layer. Obviously, I'm not starting with combinations of potential keywords and subject headings. I just threw in a title, but you can see that here is where that is begun to be built. You can download it and save it. There are additional filters. Those filters are available on that results page. Now, obviously, if I only have one result, come on. That's not very meaningful necessarily. But here it might make more sense. And so all along this left-hand side are filters that get incredibly specific, and they can be very helpful. But again, you usually aren't applying those until you recognize that you've gotten a decent number of items that speak to your topic, because otherwise filters can choke your results into far too few too soon. So those are all the main points I planned on going over. And I realized that I've really thrown a ton of information at you, and I've wandered completely outside my PowerPoint slides, but that's typical for me. And we'll just come back to here. So if you don't remember anything at all, please remember we are here to help. You're not bothering us. And even though different librarians have designated what I'll call domains, or territories, or subject areas, we are all happy to talk with you and happy to hook you up with the right librarian or help you immediately, depending upon the circumstances. I hope this has been helpful. Please take a moment to fill out an evaluation form that you can find at this link on the page here. And would you put that in the chat for me?
Yep, working on it right now.
Thank you. So I want to thank Emily for helping me do all of this stuff. And thank you guys for taking time out of your day. And I hope some of this is valuable for you.